Blockbuster Movie Media presents.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 36 of the Creepy Kingdom podcast. A podcast all about the creepiness of the Disney films and theme parks. I am your host, Mr. James H. Carter II. Coming up in this episode, it's finally time for the great Maleficent debate. I welcome to the show Soap Dish from the Diz After Dark podcast, and him and I are going to hash it out over this summer's blockbuster film, Maleficent. This debate was recorded within days of the film's release in May 2014, and I've been kind of holding on to it just to make sure that everyone has gotten a chance to see the film. Now, sure, there'll be some people that haven't seen it yet, and it has not come out on Blu-ray or DVD or streaming or on demand or however movies come out these days. It's going to be a little while. So it's just completely filled with spoilers. So if you still haven't seen it, I would suggest putting this one in the archives and coming back. Or if you want to spoil it for yourself and just have a good time, stick around. So, without any further ado, let's begin. Alrighty then, I'm here with Soap Dish from the Diz After Dark podcast. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, sir. So, before we get started down this road, in case someone's unfamiliar with your podcast, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, well, Diz After Dark is a podcast that's the same as all the others. Kind of. It's three guys, all from the UK, who are massive Disney fans, and we like a drink. And we try and produce a fairly family-friendly show, despite that. But we kind of do things from a slightly adult perspective. So sometimes we're not quite as cutesy or Disney-friendly as other podcasts. But it's not because we don't like it or don't love Disney at all. It's just that we try to look at things from a slightly different angle. Try to have fun and try to make it as fun as possible. And I think if anyone's familiar with the show Top Gear about cars, we're kind of like the Disney audio version of that. So hopefully that means you'll give us a listen. If not, try and give us a listen anyway. Just one episode. And if it's rubbish, just unsubscribe. It's fine. I won't take offense.
All right, great. So you do your show from the Mouse's Head?
Indeed. The world-famous pub that is the Mouse's Head.
Yeah, when I listen to your show and I hear that name, I imagine it along the I'm blanking out on the name of that thing, but the mile of bars in World's End. That's called. I imagine it along the way there. It's not the last one, of course, because that's the World's End.
I mean, to be honest, there was a deleted scene that Edgar Wright filmed in the Mouse's Head, but it was too crazy, so he decided to just cut it out. But if you've seen the other pubs that are featured in that film, then the Mouse's Head's not that dissimilar to that. We do have a very crazy pub singer who I think is actually more famous than we are now, and that's one of the reasons I've seen that to get cut. He was just too good.
Oh, okay. So it was stealing the show. It wasn't
absolutely.
About that.
Yeah, he steals it from us sometimes. It's our show, but damn.
Alrighty. Well, I asked you to come on because I put out an invitation over the Twitter, and you're the only one that stepped up to the challenge.
See, I was going to ask that question because, I've not been trying to do the same as you in that respect, but just trying to gauge people's opinions about this subject, and it does look like I'm in a bit of a minority, so it's lucky we found each other in that regard.
Oh, yes. And what the challenge I put out was, if anyone had actually seen Maleficent and didn't like it, I invited them to come on the show and hash it out with me. Because I've seen a lot of talk of people bashing Maleficent that hadn't even seen it. And I had just gotten back from seeing it, and I was on quite the high from it. And I just wasn't going to tolerate it. I was like, that's why I said, I'm not gonna have a discussion with someone that hasn't even seen the movie. So.
No. I mean, that side of things does annoy me myself, and I saw that a lot when John Carter came out.
Right.
The same thing, that it was almost like people wanted it to fail. I mean, to kind of start things off, I saw this on opening night in the UK, which is the 28th of May. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what you just described when you came out, I actually felt the complete opposite. And this is why this is going to be really good. Because, it is two completely polar opposites.
Right.
And I've been trying to find out myself exactly why people enjoyed it in the way they have, and why I didn't enjoy it in the way that I did. And I've not really been able to have a good conversation with somebody about it. And I know you're the person that's going to have that conversation with me.
I surely am, sir.
I predict good things.
So when I put that out there, you had sent me a link to a blog post that you wrote.
Yes.
Which was the written word equivalent of yelling and ranting, mostly. But through some of it, I got some information out of it.
You could quite rightly describe it as the ramblings of a madman. That's fine. I can take that. To be honest, what was quite funny was that when I left the cinema or the theatre that night, I called up my partner in crime and said, "How quickly can we get a podcast out?" And he was like, "Well, we can probably do it tomorrow." And I was like, "That's too late."
Oh, you're ready to go.
and that's it. And so I put my mad ramblings in my head into words. But the problem with doing that is when you're writing stuff down, your fingers do a lot more work than what you'd probably say if you were just talking out loud.
Right.
So, it probably went on a little bit longer than it would have done had I recorded it. But we'll cover whatever points you want.
No, I just imagined that it was like someone was yelling at me. That was pretty much the monologue that in my head as I was reading it.
To be honest, that is how it reads, I think. I'm not like that normally, in the fact that I wouldn't actually do that to somebody. But I think you're right in the way that I was expressing myself. It would have been as if I was just shouting at a wall. I try not to shout at people. I think that's a little bit rude.
A little bit.
But yeah, I'd have definitely been shouting at a wall somewhere, probably punching it.
So you had some things there, and I'm like, you sent me the link, and I said, well, let me read this and see if I agree, or you may change my perspective on something or whatever. And I pretty much have a response to everything that you wrote here. So I'm ready.
Well, I mean, at the start of this, a little bit of background about my feelings, and that is that I've been actually looking forward to this film. Maybe that was a problem, because sometimes you can look forward to something so much and it doesn't live up to it.
Right.
I'm a massive fan of Tron Legacy, but I can see the shortcomings in the film, and I can see why it didn't do quite so well. But I was really hyped for a good year before that film came out to see it.
Yeah, they hyped it up pretty good. And I like Tron Legacy, by the way.
Cool. I mean, I know there are others as well, but there's not lots. But I think that the thing that disappointed me so much with this, when I saw it, was the fact that when I came out, rather than feeling that high of seeing something magnificent, to pardon the pun, I almost felt the opposite. And I think some of that might have had to do with my own hype towards it. But it's feeling like that is different, like you say, to people that may have not seen the film. And I think there's a big distinction there. I have seen people kind of poo-poo it or say things about the film that haven't actually seen it. And I do think no matter, however you feel my opinions are of the film, whether you agree or not with those, at least I've taken the time out to watch that film.
Right.
So I think, anyone that hasn't seen the film, even if after this conversation, do not let any opinions sway you. See it for yourself. And try and take those preconceptions away, because a lot of people said, I won't see it because Angelina Jolie's in it.
What?
Forget about
Somebody said that to you? What?
I've not said it to me, but I've seen people write that on Twitter. And you can't go into you can't stop seeing a film because you don't like someone in it. I'm not a massive Tom Cruise fan, not a massive fan of his films, but I will go and see Edge of Tomorrow, whatever the blockbuster's out. Yeah, because it looks pretty good and it's had some good reviews. I'll go and give that a go, even though I'm not convinced by any acting. You can't let that stop you. And to be honest, and I said this in my review, I think for me, Angelina Jolie was actually one of the real highlights of the film.
I mean, I don't think anyone else could have even played the role. I mean, they could have, but it would have been a totally different movie.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And I did have to question, actually, to ask my wife at some point and say they aren't real cheekbones, are they? Because all of a sudden, I just suddenly thought, have I been missing something all these years? Just in case. I've seen her in lots of films and I've liked it, but they were so well done. The effects on her face was so good. The makeup was so good that you didn't think for a second that this couldn't have actually been real.
Right. No.
And a film of that nature, that's hard to do.
No, for sure. I mean, even I saw a picture of her not as Maleficent recently, and I'm like, wait, why do you look like that? I've been looking at so much Maleficent stuff the past few months. I'm like, wait, this isn't real. You haven't become her. I thought you just became her, and now you're doing Maleficent stuff.
But to be honest, I mean, so far, from my point of view, this actually sounds quite positive. So why don't you put out some of the negatives? And this conversation will change.
Okay. So I think the first thing you have there is, and you can clarify this if I'm not quoting this or summarizing it, correctly. You didn't like the CGI look of the fairies and the car. This, by the way, this is totally spoiler filled. This whole episode is spoilers, so we don't have to dance around subject here.
It's been out for a couple of weeks. If you haven't seen it by now, it's your own fault.
Right. Yeah. So this will be released in a little bit, So yeah. So don't worry about that. So, but you didn't like the CGI look of the fairies and the whole moors area. I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah. I think I did get that point across. So the way I felt about the moors as an area during the day. During any kind of daytime scene, it really reminded me of Oz. I can't really put my finger on why, but it reminded me very much of Oz the Great and Powerful, which unfortunately was another film which I thought was quite disappointing in that respect. But at night, it changed completely, and it actually, to me, looked like an advert for Avatar Land. Now, I know obviously they do look different, but because of how things were glowing and stuff like that, it just reminded me of the concept art that we've seen so far for the Avatar parks at Animal Kingdom.
Right.
And actually, I was talking with one of my co-hosts on Diz After Dark just recently about the film, and we were discussing the fact that it reminded him of that as well, of it looking like concept art, if anything. You could, if someone showed me that picture out of context, I would have gone for that. I wouldn't have said it looked like something from Maleficent. And I think my feeling towards it was more the fact that it felt a little bit cheap in that it didn't look original.
Original. That's very okay. I get
Yeah,
what you're saying there.
that's kind of where I'm getting with that. I think it felt like with that, and also as well with some of the creatures, so like the trees, it's like the warriors there, and some of the other, not the fairy godmothers so much, but the other fairies within that kingdom looked like characters or creatures from other fantasy films. And then even like things like The Hobbit, I was getting vibes of that, and it just felt like, you know, when you get a video editing package and it comes preloaded with effects and things for you to use, it felt like they'd just taken a load of stuff from other films, changed things ever so slightly to make them, you know, just that much different,
right.
And that enough to, you know, make you believe this was a new film.
Well, I will say that the similar look, not The Hobbit, but to Oz the Great and Powerful, and also you'd mentioned Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland.
Yes, I did, yes.
Yes, in the article, is because the director of Maleficent is the production designer on those two other films.
Yes.
So that is a connection. So I wasn't sure what you didn't like about them. I thought you just didn't like them because they were CGI, but you said it didn't look original. Yeah, I mean, it's on one end. That's a hard thing to argue with you about because it does look familiar.
I know the background. I knew he was a producer on Alice in Wonderland, and you know, I mean, originally, you know, back a few years ago, Tim Burton was going to direct this film,
right?
And when he passed, that's when it got passed over to the director who did make it, and. Yeah, you can definitely see some similarities there. But, you know, I think with all of these films, you want them to have their own identity. And I think that was frustrating to me that you didn't. And I did mention the fairy godmothers as well, in how they looked. And I saw what they were trying to do. But, again, I think the problem I had was Angelina Jolie seemed to be the only real human fairy within the Moors. So even the fairy godmothers, although obviously you could see the original actresses that were playing them,
right,
they were animated. So it was like they'd taken almost like an impression of their face.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how else to describe it. It's a very weird kind of effect when you see it.
Well, I've never seen anything like that before. I could say that with the fairy godmothers. That was kind of
no.
Look.
Yeah, totally. I think the only thing that you can probably compare it to, or possibly compare it to, was what they did with Jeff Bridges, making him look younger in Tron Legacy.
Right.
But I didn't see the need for it. And when you've got Angelina Jolie looking like a human, be it a fairy, but having all those human features and having a real face, no one else did.
Well, I mean, that could be a directorial choice.
I think it was. I think that's exactly what it is. But I don't get why everyone else was so different compared to her.
Well, she's kind of a god, sort of, amongst the Moors. I mean, because of her powers. So I'd imagine that's kind of what I think of it. I didn't really, no one really looked like her in the Moors, but I thought that just kind of separated her from everyone else.
I mean, is she? I mean, I know I didn't really go too much into the story, but is she half human, half fairy?
Yeah, they never really said that.
Yeah, I'm trying. I don't think they do.
They
See, I
didn't
mean,
say no.
that if that was her origin, that would explain it that bit more. Why she looked so different, but
well, she had to be human enough to have a relationship with young King Stefan.
Touche.
So there was that, and I think also it's an interesting point there. Like, why didn't more people look like her in the Moors? I think it's because she was the supreme leader of the Moors. And she just and I think maybe also, I mean, let's just be honest. I'm not going to change Angelina Jolie not to look like a human, but let's just take her out of it. That would just be quite if the main character of the film was this crazy CGI thing the entire movie. I think that'd be quite an undertaking too.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think what I felt more was it should have been more the other way around. So rather than trying to change, and which they obviously didn't do, they kept Angelina Jolie as her, just with very prominent cheekbones.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than try and make her more CGI or something like that, was actually go the other way and try and make like the fairy godmothers or other people there more human.
Right.
That to me would have made more. I said, I think it was just the fact that you had one person that was completely different to anyone else within that kingdom. But there's obviously a reason why. I think it's just because it wasn't hammered home as to what that reason was. To me, it felt jarring, and it took me out of the film a little bit, trying to work out why things were like they were.
Okay. I mean, I could kind of see your point. That didn't really cross my mind as I was watching it. I do believe that there was some strange backstory that was cut, which somebody told me recently, which I don't remember what it was, but kind of shows what was it? Who her parents are or something? Something like that. I don't remember.
And the thing is that's probably what it needed. I mean, it's a short film, isn't it? Was it 97 minutes or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for a major picture like that, it's a short film. And I think there were times when I thought something is missing. And I didn't realise it the runtime until after that, and I looked it up that it was so short. So I think you're right. I think there is more film out there.
Yeah.
And maybe something that would explain some of the issues that I've kind of brought up here.
So we'll see when it comes out on Blu-ray or whatever, and
yes,
and we'll see what happens with that. All right, I think we can move on from the CGI. And then the next real point I have here, because the other ones are not really, you're kind of vague, not vague. I mean, you were neutral, so we don't need to get into that. But is you don't like the twist. You don't like the twist. You don't like that it's Maleficent that breaks the spell. So get into that.
Yeah, to me, I think the problem I had with the twist, and I've read up a little bit within the last couple of weeks about theories behind things, and also apparently reshoots that had been taking place quite recently.
Oh, okay.
And to me, it just seemed very strange that the twist in the film is extremely similar to the highest grossing Disney animated film of all time, which happened just a few months ago. I'm sure it's not a coincidence. And also, reshoots did take place. It's hard to know exactly what was reshot because they're normally very, cagey about the fact they're having reshoots anyway. But from what I understand, it was actually the director of Save Mr. Banks. I can't remember his name now. Hooker?
I don't recall who that was.
Yeah. But also the guy that did The Blind Side as well. And I think he was involved in the reshoots as well. And it'd be interesting if we ever do find out if that was the case. But to me, it just seemed, one, very convenient that it had a very similar twist. But also, I think my problem with the promotion of this film is, obviously in some of the trailers, they really hyped the fact that, scenes were from the film, the animated film, sorry, or Sleeping Beauty. And see how the mistress of all evil, like her true story, why she was so evil. And really, and forgetting the twist a second, for me, the problem with the film Maleficent is that, except possibly for something towards the end of the film, after this scene, I don't think she actually does anything that is evil. She seems to be the complete opposite.
And well, you don't think that she did anything evil in the whole movie? Is that what you're saying?
Not at the end. And I suppose we're giving Yeah, and I suppose given spoilers when she could have potentially saved somebody.
Oh no, I'll get to that. That's a whole separate
we'll
point.
come to that.
Yeah, I'm sticking on this on the twist for now.
so one twist at a time, please, say this. So I think my thing there was just really. I mean, I could see it coming, and I was still surprised it was happening. But I don't know. I suppose with the tone of the film, it made sense. But I think because I was expecting more of what we understood Sleeping Beauty to be, that it was such a dramatic change in that respect. I mean, to be honest, I think that was that particular scene right there, and it is towards the end of the film. But that bit right there is the moment you have to go. Sleeping Beauty never happened. Because Sleeping Beauty had, in your mind, if that had happened, this film makes no sense at all.
Right.
And I think my biggest problem, especially initially after seeing Maleficent, was the fact I couldn't get my head around the fact that it has nothing to do with Sleeping Beauty, other than some of the characters have the same name.
Well, I have an opinion on that overall, which I'll get to when we get to the end, about how it's different from Sleeping Beauty. But I feel within the context of the film that the fact that Maleficent's the one that broke the curse totally made sense, because you actually see her, develop a loving, caring relationship, for Aurora. So that and the whole thing was not that way at all with Prince Philip. It was just, which I thought was brilliant. Actually, it does go back to the original film, which I'll just say now. I love Sleeping Beauty. Looks beautiful. I especially love Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty. But beyond that, there is nothing there. That is the weakest story on earth. If you really sit there and think about the story of Sleeping Beauty.
Very basic. No, I give you that. There's not much there. I mean, and that's another point, actually, you raised there with Philip, is the fact that he's such a drip.
Yeah.
To be honest, I mean, obviously you don't really know what happens after the credits roll with Maleficent. Well, you do, but what I mean is, in the future. And the one thing you hope is actually Aurora gets someone better.
Yeah, no,
because he's rubbish.
Yeah, no,
he's got nothing going for him except that he's a prince. Really?
Right. So it was leading up to it. It's like, oh, he's the guy. I mean, you would want them to actually go through something in order for him to be her true love, not just show up a few times.
And not only that, when he actually did show up, he didn't even know he was there, did he?
No.
That's another point, I suppose. One thing I do want to say as well, with the reveal of True Love's kiss, is another thing that I've seen, and this really did annoy me, was people saying that they feel with this and with the same twist essentially happening in Frozen, that it felt like Disney was kind of, I think someone put it as pandering to the lesbian and gay community. Now,
I didn't get that. There was no romantic love there. It was motherly love.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, I mean, I'm pro all that anyway. So you're talking to the wrong person if you try and throw that argument my way. But really, it's almost like people are trying to find excuses sometimes as to why you shouldn't like something. As I said, and we've discussed already some of the reason why I don't like the movie, but it's definitely got nothing to do with anything like that. And if you're seeing that, if you see that scene in the film and you think that that's trying to promote something else, you've got issues, my friend.
That's the whole point. You got something going on with yourself.
There's no romantic. There's nothing romantic about that scene at all, except for the loving bond between parent and child. And although she's not obviously her mother, the way that she ends up looking after her, especially because of the stupid fairy godmothers that she was left with, who are useless, and that's another thing that annoyed me. But there's nothing at all that you can gather from that. So if you really are seeing it, you need to get yourself checked out. But I wanted to say that because I know there are some people that have done that, and my problem with that scene has got anything to do with that at all. Mm-hmm. I just think that was the point. As I said, it deviated so much from the original tale, but at the same time, I do agree with what you say, in that within the context of the film and everything that leads up to it, it's almost the only plausible resolution to that particular story strand.
Yeah,
there was no other way it could have really ended satisfactorily.
Yeah, I felt if it would have been the prince, that would have been dumb. At that point when he did it, I'm like, oh, here we go. Here's the part where the prince comes.
That's it. Or even if it was her dad, because it seems quite clear that he was so fixed on revenge,
right? Yeah.
That it was almost like he forgot he had a daughter.
No, he descended into madness, which I thought they illustrated beautifully. It was a slow descent, and every time you saw him, he was more and more far gone.
And Charlton Copley is a fantastic actor. I haven't seen him in anything bad yet. I've seen him in bad films, but he's never been bad in them.
What other films has he been in? I didn't recognize him.
Oh, really? He's in a very good sci-fi film called District 9.
He's in District 9. I don't remember him.
Yeah, he's one of the main characters in it. Oh. But he's South African by nationality, and very thick South African accent that film.
Well, there you go. He's pretty good at masking that.
And he's also in the remake of The A-Team, where he plays Murdoch. Again, that's a film that people hated that I liked. So I don't try and hate everything. I do actually try and like films as well. But I think you're right. He played the part very well. The way he did this, as you say, descend into madness was very well done. There was no questions about what was happening. But yeah, I think that's it. I think they left it with no other place to go than to do it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that's, although within the concept story it makes sense, I think that's the other thing, is that for 50 odd years, Maleficent has been evil.
Right.
And so I expect somebody that's held in that regard. And I mean, let's be honest, if you go and ask a load of Disney fans their favourite Disney villain, then, I'd say a good percentage of those would say Maleficent. And then you put her in a film, but you take all of that away.
Oh, yeah. No, Maleficent's rewritten for history at this point. I mean, we'll see as time goes on. But overall, I think so. I mean, one thing I feel I'll tell you what, I would have loved if this was an evil movie, and I actually wish she had spent more time being evil, because that was by far the favorite part of my movie, when she puts the curse in the beginning. That's the kind of stuff I love. But even though I was just as hyped up as you were, I mean, God, it was 3 years since they first announced it, and I've been just excited ever since. I still was kind of like, I'm not expecting anything in particular here. I'm just gonna go along for the ride, And at the beginning, you're kind of like, what is happening here? With the children, her as a child. But after a few minutes, it moved along, and you're kind of getting like, oh, there's a point to this. We're not going to spend like half an hour as a child or whatever.
That's it.
So yeah, no, Maleficent is now not evil, I guess.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other thing that then annoyed me about it was the way I tried to, after deciding this obviously isn't Sleeping Beauty, then I was trying to work out where it was going to go next. And really what I was hoping for from the end of the film is to kind of reveal that, there's two sides to every story, which one is the true story. Because I think that would make an interesting argument. Because, you could then have people say, well, I actually think that Maleficent's version of the story is probably what happened, and actually she's not really that evil.
Right.
But essentially, what they did with the end...
Well, let's not jump to the end. Let's not jump to the end yet.
Sorry.
Because we got one more point before we get to that.
Go for it.
And that is, you wrote that Maleficent killed King Stefan, and I don't agree with you.
Okay.
I don't think that happened.
You're wrong.
That did not happen. Now, again, I would love to sit there and rewatch the scene again, but, I've only seen it once. And that did not happen. As soon as I read that, I was like, no, It didn't happen.
I mean, I when I say she killed him, what I really mean, now obviously I've only seen it once as well, so I'm going back on my memory of seeing the film. But she didn't kill him, but what she didn't do was save him.
Well, here's my recall of the play-by-play. It was that he was coming after her, and she was kind of doing the, don't, stop this or I'll have to kill you line, that the redemption line that she has. And because in the past she would have just done it. But of course she, let's not forget, the whole reason that Maleficent is evil and the Moors turned into this evil place is because he stole her wings. Her heart was black, and everything around her turned. So, but still, she obviously, if she didn't care, she wouldn't be evil. So she obviously still loves him in some way, So she doesn't want to kill him, even though after all this, I mean, this is my interpretation, of course. I don't know what she wants to do, but So, anyways, and I think it's a move where she pushes him off, and then is like, she's about to let him go, and then he comes at her, and she moves out of the way, and then he dies to his death.
Yeah.
So he did it to himself. Like, well, Melissa doesn't even have wings. She can't fly and save him. Like, what is she supposed to do?
I think it's when somebody has powers. She's got a crow that she can turn into anything, including a dragon. Which
where was? But wasn't he chained up at that moment?
No, he wasn't. He was chained up as the dragon, but when he first turned into the dragon, he was not chained up.
Not bad, but at that point, wasn't the dragon battle before this point, and then it had to have been. Yes.
No, you're quite right. Yeah, you're quite right, because it was after their escape from that chamber that the final battle with the king happened. But I mean, I was listening to your last Maleficent special, and I know when you were seeing that trailer that you was like, the fact that you saw the dragon, was like not the game changer for you, because you was already really looking forward to it. But that was the one shot that you was like, it's happened. Yeah. It's in the film. It's in the film. Were you disappointed when you found out it wasn't her, or was you okay with that?
Well, I've told you just to be clear, I haven't really told you exactly how I feel about it. Obviously, I love the film. There was two things that were disappointing to me about the film. The one I already told you was that I wish there was just more time for her spent evil. And I was completely disappointed that she wasn't the dragon.
I guess correctly.
You did. No, I literally was like, because I saw, like, after I sensed that scene was coming. Like, I didn't know how it was going to be.
No.
But in the context of the film, it makes total sense that she's not the dragon, because there was nothing leading up to how that even happens. But the weirdest part about that is the whole reason Maleficent has horns, the original character, is because she shape shifts into a dragon. Like, it's part of, that's part of who she is. So that's kind of like my big thing. That's my criticism of it, that I'm just like, overall, I'm not saying this is a flawless film. I just think there's so many things in this movie that I loved, and I want to champion this because I don't know if you figured this out or not, but I really love creepy Disney stuff, and
I did listen to your, some of the other shows and the title of the podcast. Because to be honest, I think people listen to my podcast, they just think that I like going to Disney when it's like dark outside. I don't think we're really selling ourselves very well. But with your podcast, we're pretty creepy. I can't even say it. Creepy Kingdom. It's like you're laying your cards out on the table, and this is who I am. This is what I do.
Yep.
We don't do that so well, so we should take some lessons from you. But I understand that. I mean, to me, that annoyed me, but I think for me that the worst change in the film for me was the fairy. It was the fairy godmothers. Sorry, let me be specific there. Right. In the fact that, one, I still to this day do not understand why they changed their names, but also why they made them so stupid. And I mentioned this earlier, but
they are stupid. I mean, they make the Three Stooges look like Mensa members. Let's be honest.
Well,
They're useless.
I had this debate with my friend Roxy Tart. She didn't like the change of name either, and I'm like, I think that was to say that it's not the other fairies.
but at the same time, why was everyone else? Well, actually, no, there was one other name change, wasn't there, as well? Because
the Raven.
Yeah. But everyone else seemed to have the same name. Although, at first, the Briar Rose thing, I couldn't get my head around either. But again, I suppose it's essentially a different story. So, once you forget that Briar Rose ever existed, then...
Right.
And it was a cover-up name anyway, wasn't it? So I suppose the fact that Maleficent found her 5 minutes after she disappeared, never to be seen again, meant that that particular plot point was kind of irrelevant.
Right. She didn't need to go in incognito the witness fairy protection program.
Now there's a spin-off.
Yeah. So let's go to the end. The last little thing in the movie that you did not like, which is that the narrator, or you can say, you know what it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've already kind of almost ruined it already, but that is the fact that at the end of the film, as I said, for me, it would have been really nice for them to have said, there's this side of the story that and there's this new story, side of the story that you've never heard before. And essentially, that to me was what Maleficent was, and that was what the trailers kind of alluded to, you know, the untold story, how she became evil, all of these things. One, obviously, it didn't really show you why she was evil, because she wasn't. I don't have the argument all day long. I don't think she really was evil. She put a curse on. That's quite nasty, but that's all she did. She didn't really do too much else.
Well, okay, you don't know what else she did because before that point.
They didn't show you anything else.
Right, because that goes to my thing where I wanted to see more time of that. But she was, she was evil then. Like I could see the argument that like right after the curse scene, she starts showing her old ways a little bit, and I think that was part of. I mean, her before she was evil or dark, that her darkness was lightening slowly. But that was that's what the movie is. It's about turning her from evil to good. Really, that's really what the storyline is. But
at the same time, I mean, when you look at obviously at the beginning of the film, she is herself a young girl, and she was all peaceful, seemed quite friendly, having a little, getting splashed around by whatever creatures they were,
right?
Or from the Hobbit, or wherever they come from. Sorry, but she seemed quite fun-loving, and when she met the young Stefan, who was just, I don't know, a pauper, or he wasn't royalty at that point. But you saw them having fun, and she was flying with him and dunking him in the lakes and everything like this, and it was all kind of fun and jovial. The only time you saw her get anywhere near nasty, she was defending her home.
Right.
There was obviously stuff in the moors that was people felt was important and wanted to cultivate Pandora, but they seem to love that in films at the moment. But until that point, when her homeland was attacked, or they tried to attack it, you didn't see her do anything that you think, oh, that's not very nice. She seemed very playful, and the way that when the young Stefan, when I first met, tried to steal something, she didn't try and attack him or or use anything on him. She was very human, very kind of calm in her reaction to something that obviously wasn't particularly nice.
No, I wasn't saying that in her youth she had evil tendencies. I'm pretty much saying from the point her wings were stolen to the curse, we don't know exactly what she was doing.
No. Right, no, you're spot on. You kind of almost go from her being in anguish about losing her wings, which I get that. If someone cut my wings off, that'd be pretty miffed. To dispel, you don't see in between.
You don't see that, and by the time she's at the spell, like she's not a nice person. I don't, there's some whatever that happened in that time period. That's the evil. I mean, it's funny because I mean, I would watch a whole movie of that time period because I just can't. I just eat that up. But it just, to me, it worked. I believe that she was nice and loving and carefree before that point, but that she found love, her only love she ever had, and was betrayed, and then took her part of her identity, and she's so powerful that how she's feeling changes entire environments all around her. Like, that's intense, like that's what I buy. And that's, I think they illustrated that perfectly, personally.
And you kind of think with Angelina Jolie, it's just desserts that love betrays her.
That's true.
Too soon.
You stumped me. I didn't know what to say to that.
But no, I mean, I will agree with you there. Certainly, I think they did it well. One question that I felt after watching the film and thinking back about things is the fact that, do you think because you had somebody like Angelina Jolie in that role, that maybe, I mean, I've never seen the original scripts, and I know people have seen the original script. It'd be interesting to see how much it changed. But do you think that it may have softened the character because of who was playing her? And so, not necessarily written into the contract, but, you don't want to, sometimes when you're a high-profile actress, you don't want to be too evil in a film, especially one that's a family film. And I wonder how much has actually been toned down from what they may have originally tried to go with.
It's interesting. I'm not sure. I feel like she was signed on probably before the script was written, because it was literally 3 years that they announced that she was playing the role. And I'm not sure. And even 3 years ago, I don't really know what the whole point of this was. I mean, what their game plan is. I mean, it's a really left field idea for them, for the Disney company to do. And their attempts at doing spooky recently have failed. I keep bringing it up, but I love Frankenweenie so much, and it just got clobbered by that other movie I keep forgetting about, Hotel Transylvania or whatever it's called, because that one is just silly, and this was actually dark and upsetting, but it was so good.
Frankenweenie was tragic, and I mean tragic in the sad way, not in I think it was rubbish. I thought it was a great film, but it just didn't seem to find its audience. I think sometimes with Tim Burton stuff, it can be a little bit too left field. But you do have to wonder, had that been more of a success, how that may have changed this story. And also, just because the script's been written, I mean, a script for Maleficent could be, for all we know, 7, 8 years old, maybe more.
Yeah,
sometimes scripts will go flowing around, rewritten. And the thing is, even on sets, you'll still get rewrites, and sometimes quite heavy rewrites as well. So, we will never know. We will never know unless somebody does like a tell-all book about what happened on the making, which I'm sure won't happen. But it did leave me wondering, what happened. And the exclamation point at the end of this film, and kind of what I was alluding to, was the fact that, I would have liked it to have ended, as I said, that you have, two sides of the story and you can believe which one you want. But Aurora is narrating the film, and as now as an adult, and says that this is the true story, and basically what you've heard before isn't true. So that, to me, puts the exclamation point on that the film we've just watched is the definitive version, and that is it.
Right.
And I think that was the thing that probably cut to the heart more than anything else. So even though things had kind of griped me a little bit, annoyed me, I think it was that. And it was at that point I thought, and I did put this in more graphic terms, but that was the point.
You're like, no, I don't like it.
it kind of to me ruined the legacy of arguably a Disney classic. There were two parks that have Sleeping Beauty's castle as a centerpiece. It's beloved within Disney, and that to me felt like an absolute step to the heart, a punch in the balls, a kick in the gut, whatever you want to say is the way you want to be hurt the most. And that, to me, was the bit that got me. If they'd have just left it so you were free to make your own choice, which essentially is what they should have done, because then you could believe what you wanted. Was it all of this? Was it all of that? Is it a little bit of both? And, the two films mixed together is actually what happened.
Right. Well, I didn't have that reaction to it because of what I said earlier. what's great about Sleeping Beauty is not the story. You know, like it's big. I mean, it's one of those films. I haven't done it on the show yet, but just like no, I'm drawing a blank on it. Whatever. It's one of those films that I was Dumbo. I was thinking of where you already know what is going to happen before you even see the movie. You know?
Come on, you'd never seen an elephant fly.
But I'm saying, yeah, you got me again. And he got me too when you did that.
Sorry, I'll stop.
No, you stopped me. I mean, before you watch Dumbo, you're like, I'm gonna watch the movie about the flying elephant. So everything's just leading up to seeing the flying elephant. I'm gonna watch Sleeping Beauty. I'm gonna watch the movie where she falls asleep and a prince kisses her. You know, like so. Even I can't remember not knowing that going in, even at the youngest age of watching Sleeping Beauty. So it's about the execution and I mean, obviously as a kid watching Sleeping Beauty, it's fine. You know, it's simple enough to follow and whatever. But watching it as an adult, I realized I was like, what is, like, there's no story here at all. Like, I was just like, they just were like, yeah, well, that doesn't matter. I mean, it literally is probably one of the most beautiful looking animated films ever. Like, it's just like, so spot on, and especially watching it on Blu-ray. Like, it's so beautiful. But,
yeah.
And I mean, whatever. I like the movie. I'm not trying to say it sucks. I'm just saying there's no story, right? And so when they said, or when the narrator of Maleficent is revealed to be Aurora and says that what you heard before wasn't true, I was like, oh, it makes sense now, because that other story didn't make any sense. Thanks for clearing it up, Aurora. Like, that was literally my thought. You know?
And I think the problem is as well is that at the moment Disney themselves don't seem to know what to do.
Yo, they've definitely painted themselves in a corner, but they could have taken that out of there. That's just a voiceover. That's not like
no. But what I mean is that, you know, you can still have a meet and greet with animated Maleficent, who is a villain.
Right.
They don't seem to have decided what to do in a park yet with friendly Maleficent. Or let's say you know, pale and green. You know, they're the two Maleficents, aren't they? Green Maleficent, evil.
Right.
Pale Maleficent, higher cheekbones, not necessarily quite so evil.
That's not quite
but you know, at the moment you can still only meet the villain Maleficent, and the thing is, you in a park, in a theme park, you can't have two different types of the same character in regards to that. All right, we've all seen Mickey Mouse in various costumes. The guy likes dressing up, let's be honest.
No, but it's Mickey Mouse somewhere else, or it's different. Yeah, but it's not. It's
the same Mickey Mouse.
Same Mickey Mouse.
He's just gone to a different part of the park and dressed up a little bit differently, but it's obviously the same person.
Right.
But you can't. You're trying to tell me that's not. Anyway, but you can't really do that with Maleficent, because you're doing it as two completely separate people, really. They both have the same kind of powers and the same kind of look and the same kind of stick, but one is the Empress of all evil, and the other one is not quite as evil.
It's interesting to say. I mean, the only other parallel really to this is Alice in Wonderland, which was pretty bizarre. You know, especially in Disneyland, where the characters are always out, and they have the Alice in Wonderland attraction, which represents the animated film. Which I haven't talked about Alice in Wonderland on the show yet. I have a lot of mixed feelings about that film.
As somebody who we named our daughter Alice after it because it was my wife's favourite, and also I'm a big fan of the animated film as well. The film seems to do things its own very strange way. So yeah, I have similar kind of issues, I think, to you on that.
Right.
But yeah, you're right in the fact that the Mad Hatter in the animated film is completely different to Johnny Depp's interpretation, not just in looks, but the whole dynamic.
Right.
The only thing they share is that they're both kind of mad.
Right.
That's it. Other than that, everything else is different.
Yeah, no, so that was, but I think there was kind of like, those versions are similarly represented in the Mad Tea Party at California Adventure, but
okay, yeah.
But still, I was just kind of like, I don't know. It's really nitpicky stuff here, that kind of thing, because you want to be able to meet the characters, especially as a child, that you see in the films. You want to think you're stepping into their world, and if you go take it, you want to go see Maleficent let's just put it. Let's be fair here. Most kids from now on are going to be more familiar with the film Maleficent than Sleeping Beauty. I mean, as the generations move on, and they have to represent that in the parks. If not, it's really weird to have the Green Goblin version of Maleficent, especially the way the face character looks. It really looks like the Green Goblin.
I can definitely see where you're coming from there. I mean, I think the only way they can kind of get out of that situation, and I don't know if they've had that thought yet or not, but is maybe have Maleficent as a more regular day-to-day character. I mean, she's certainly not in Disney World. I'm not sure if she's in Disneyland in California, but
I hear she's out regularly.
Okay,
Maleficent, yeah.
So maybe what they need to do is change that, have the new Maleficent out as the main character on the meet and greets, and have the green Maleficent for nighttime events or not so scary Halloween parties or like villain events,
long last friends, all that crap. Yeah.
All those hard ticket events that they like to do. But that's the only way I can see them doing it. They either have to ignore the fact or they don't. And I mean, from what I've seen so far, the film has done as well as they expected to. It's doing very well at the box office. And you would have thought they'd like to capitalise, but at the same time, as you just mentioned as well, Alice in Wonderland did phenomenal at the box office, even if we disagree.
Right.
And yet, even though that took in a ton of money, things in the parks have remained the same. They've not done that change. So, maybe they'll just carry on regardless. And
I'm sure that's what they'll do. I feel like there's no synergy between the film department and the parks.
Which it's crazy. It's not like Marvel where some of their licenses are owned, like for films, by Fox and Sony and others by themselves. You understand why that dynamic wouldn't work. But when you're making the films yourself, as the Walt Disney Company, you would expect them to maybe think about these things. But that's why we do podcasts and don't make decisions at the Disney parks. So maybe they should job swap for a couple of months.
Yeah, no, I got some ideas.
I'll be up for that. Well,
I mean, funny enough, there just isn't synergy. And probably the biggest example of that, which you can have your own opinion about it or whatever, but there was the Country Bears film that was made in 2004, and it was the same year they released that film was the same year that they closed it in Disneyland. The attraction that had been there for 30 years or whatever it had been at that point.
Now, I've not seen that film, and I've never been on the original attraction, but I have heard that not very good things about that film.
No, it's a horrible movie. But...
And maybe that was it. Maybe, the early test screenings had come back, the results had come back, and they decided, it
was so bad that they let's close the attraction. How about not release the film?
Absolute legacy attraction that's been there for, the dawn of time, just because Christopher Walken's in a film about talking bears. But I mean, I think the thing is, like, when as I said, I wrote what I did, and it's up on the Disaster Dark website, disasterdark.com, if anyone does want to see the mad ramblings. But I wrote that straight after seeing the film. I was very mad. I didn't, I thought, I wanted the word out there because I suppose in a way I kind of hoped people might see it and go, well, do I still want to see it if, someone thinks this? I mean, what I should point out is at no point, it doesn't matter what kind of critic you are, whether you're one that gets paid by a newspaper or on TV or some bloke behind a keyboard like me, make your own decisions.
Of course.
Absolutely. And the thing is, even though we've had this healthy debate, and I think it's good to hear reasons why you like things that I didn't, and hopefully vice versa. I think the important thing for anyone really listening to this is just because I didn't like it and just because you liked it, don't then make a decision on how you feel about the film.
Oh yeah,
watch it.
make your decision based on that and not just on the ramblings of mad people. But at the end of the day, I know that me writing a column on a website anywhere in the world is not going to make people necessarily not go to the cinema. But I suppose I wanted to just air my opinion out there. And I said, it seems to be very much within the Disney community that it's well liked. So they've done something right. Whether I agree with what they've done or not, the target audience at the end of the day is the Disney community. And, you know, you look on Twitter, you look on Facebook, you know, I'd say it's probably about 80% positive on the film overall. And that's really good from within the community.
Especially how cynical everyone's become.
But
Everyone's so cynical these days.
But that's the thing. I mean, you know, I wanted to make that clear that, you know, although I'm more than happy to stand up and say, well, I don't like this and I don't like that with things that Disney do, and it's easy because they don't pay me any money. but at the same time, don't hate things just for the sake of hating them. I said, I think my biggest frustration was the fact I wanted to like the film and ended up not liking it. You know, if I'd have gone in there thinking I'm going to hate it and hated it, well,
right, yeah, it's self-fulfilling.
You then have to ask your own questions. Yeah. But if you're listening to this and you think, and you agree with some of the things I said, or you felt that you didn't like it, you're not completely mad. There are a few of us out there. We're in the minority, but we exist. And luckily, thanks to this lovely podcast and James for having me on, that point has been put across. So, you know, thank you for giving me the platform to discuss this with you. I've enjoyed it. I hope it's not bored people too much, and I hope it has given people things to think about. But I think that the thing that we should all come away with really is that just, you know, we can all love the same thing. We listen to podcasts because we love Disney. We go to the parks because we love Disney. Mm-hmm. But we don't necessarily have to love everything that they do or agree with everything that they do. So at the same time, don't be blinded by the fact that just because it's made by Disney, that it means it's amazing.
Right. No, just
because
be honest.
The Country Bears just proved that.
Yes, true. No, that's true. That's your whole summary is the point. Is yeah. That's it. We don't really review movies for saying whether they're good or not, you know, on this show, and this was kind of an exception because this is such a big deal, to me and the theme of our show, you know. So I just wanted to have like a roundtable, and the point of this is definitely for people that have already seen it, you know, for sure, to just kind of hear other people's opinions and, you know, and whatever, just and then think about it. And anyone obviously they could write in, email or tweet it at us, you know, their thoughts of everything we're talking about. Let's keep this conversation going, you know. No problem there. So,
yeah, and I'll take any abuse as well. So don't. I mean, I don't. You know, I'm not looking forward to it. But right. if that's how you feel, I'll take it on board. But no, you know, as I said, really appreciate you having me on the show. It's been really good to talk about the film, and you know, I think in various ways it could be something that, you know, goes on for a long time with people talking about it. I think. It really will cause people to discuss it for a good few years to come, at the very least, right. Until Maleficent 2 happens, which, you know,
we'll see.
I guarantee that's in the works. But if anyone,
I don't even know how that's going to work. They've really, I know they want to do a sequel,
maybe they could do in the middle. Maybe she could visit Pandora. I don't, you know, they try and work these things out.
No, I would love to see that. I told you that period that they just like breezed over. I'd go to the movie theater now. I'd buy my tickets now for that movie.
But I think, you know, what I'd recommend to people to do with this particular episode is, you know, obviously try and listen to it after you've watched the film. But if not, download it now, keep it, and when you do watch it on Blu-ray or whatever, go back and listen to it. Or even when you next watch it when it comes out on home release and you've already seen it, listen to this again. Maybe you'll see things differently, or maybe you'll just think that British bloke's an idiot. And that's fine.
Well, yeah, when it releases again, I'll be sure to promote these old episodes. And you can just, I mean, everyone should listen to this podcast multiple times anyway. That's really important. So
and you should also download it on as many different devices as possible. Yeah. So if you've got an iPhone, Android, PC or laptop, always good. If you want to download it for people in your office, also good.
All set for them when they come into work. Just really
absolutely. Even if they don't like Disney, annoys them, that's even better. Because we try and promote that with our podcast as well. So why not? It makes you look more popular than you might be. Certainly in our case. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to listen to the further ramblings of me or any other British people. Again, I'll plug my podcast just quickly before I get chucked off the show.
No, please do. I was about to say, your last plug is get them in.
And our website is www.disafterdark.com. I believe James will kindly put a link there to my review. And the podcast is available on iTunes, on Mousechat, Stitcher, B24 Radio. We've got presence on Twitter at After Dark and Facebook. So come and interact. We'd love to hear from you. And keep listening to this damn fine show.
Thank you, sir.
It's a great podcast. And let's be honest, it's not like we're the only two Disney podcasts out there. But I think that, what makes both of the shows good is the fact that there's a different angle.
Yep.
Just something to make us a bit different to everyone else. So keep supporting the show.
All right, thank you, and thank you for coming on, sir.
A pleasure.
Oh, when ghosts and goblins by the score, ring your bell or pound your door. Better not be stingy or your nightmares will come true.
Alrighty, thanks again to Soap Dish for coming on the show. You can find his podcast by going to disafterdark.com. And just a note here, as I mentioned earlier, this debate was recorded in June. And on episode 27, when we had Jim Hill on, he actually discussed in detail the original beginning of the Maleficent film that was cut out. So we had a little conversation about the beginning felt rushed and there's a lot of questions unanswered. Well, those questions are answered, my friend. Episode 27, if you haven't heard it, do yourself a favor and go listen to it, because there's tons of great little tidbits and treats in there. There'll be a direct link to that in the show notes, so you don't have to go looking for it. It'll just be right there waiting for you. Coming up very soon, in fact, just mere days, or it could have already started. I don't know when you're listening to this, but on the day of its release, it'll be mere days. The 31 creepy days of Halloween are almost upon us. Every day in October, Creepy Kingdom will be releasing an episode. It sounds crazy, but I am going to have some help from former guests and fellow podcasters. So just be prepared. If you subscribe in the feed, get ready. Creepy days are upon us. Be sure to check out my other podcast, The Even James Has a Podcast, where myself and my co-host Allison talk about our lives. And it's filled with profanity, and it's a lot of fun. You can find the show at The Even James Has a Podcast.com. Links to all of our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google+, Tumblr, and Pinterest. All you need to do is go to creepykingdom.com. And we are available in the iTunes store, where you can rate the show. You can subscribe there. You can review the show. You can listen to it. So many great things for you to do with Creepy Kingdom right in the iTunes store. And of course on the podcast app, which is now on every iOS device. Can't even get rid of it anymore. It's right there. So you just hop right in there. And we're available on the Stitcher app, an app for your smart telephone and or tablet, which streams podcasts directly to your phone. No downloading required. Check them out at Stitcher.com. Well, until next time.
I have to go now.
It's midnight. Pleasant dreams.